I didn't think I drank too much. By doing this thing to support my son was basically to show him you didn't need drugs or alcohol to have fun. And as I said that to him, I realized I had a huge glass of wine in my hand. So I said to him right then and there, Matt, I'm going to just stop drinking for 3 months. And it's going to be 10 years in January that I've never had another drink.
What's up, everybody? That was tonight's guest, creator of Sober is the New Cool, Kim Bellis. I'm Daniel Unmanageable. This is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Treaty 6 territory, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Let's bring in Kim.
Hi.
What's up, Kim?
I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be here. I've got my son Matthew right here. He just popped in for a quick visit. So come on over this way. Yep.
Hello,
This
hello.
is my Matthew.
Hi.
This is my wife. This is where the whole story started in 2013.
Awesome. Well, thanks for popping in, Matthew. It's good to see you. Nice to meet you. Is
Yeah, pleasure's all mine.
there anything you'd like to say?
Just wanted, I hope for everybody to acknowledge that I have the best mother. Everything for everybody, for every one of her followers has been fantastic, outstanding. I also try to do it on my part as well, but since I'm full-time, I can only do so much. I want to congratulate her for everything she's done.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matthew.
No problem. Have a great
Thanks. You too, man. Kim? Is there anything you'd like to say before we jump in?
No, I'm ready to go. Just ask away. I'm an open book.
All right, here we go. Okay, so now you've had a relationship with alcohol for a number of years, but you didn't really realize it was a problem until, I would say, 10 years ago. Can you give us a bit of your journey that led up to you quitting?
Well, I was the it girl, party girl, whatever you want to call, those labels. I didn't look like I had a problem. Am I a gray area drinker? Who knows? I don't really, not big into labels or whatever. All I know is when my son got sick and I stopped drinking, because at that time, it was easy to drink a bottle of wine a night. And drinking a bottle of wine a night or 5 nights a week is just not normal. It's just not normal. And it's easily done. You start at 4:30 or 5 o'clock when you're starting the dinner, and by the time you know it, it's done. So, was I falling down? Absolutely not. Did I look out of control? No, but obviously it was out of control.
You got one of those big wine glasses. You can get through that you can get through a bottle in 3 glasses.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's easily done.
Yeah. Was there ever any point before you talked to your son about, because I remember, like, even in the intro there, it said, I told my son that you can have fun without drinking. And was it in that moment? Was there ever any moments before that where you're like, maybe you're looking at the recycling and it's just like a big bag full of wine bottles? And did that ever cross your mind that maybe that was an issue?
Yes and no, but I guess you find the excuses, right? You find excuses that it's not really an issue, right? You get up, your life is kind of a little bit on the blurry side, I'd say. You're not as positive, you're not as into exercise, everything's a bit more foggy. And sure, there were those party nights where, wow, the next day I'd say, did I say something, or didn't, a few pieces were missing here and there, and that, sure, that would bug me. But, you just kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to be good for a few days, and then the whole cycle starts again, right? There's another party or another wedding or another funeral or another luncheon, there's always a reason to drink. There's always is, right? It's just, that's society. You know, you don't go anywhere without people saying, what would you like to drink? It's not, do you want a cup of tea? You know, it's always what got, you know, wine, vodka, this, that. And, you know, so I guess looking back now, I realize, you know, there were the signs and alcohol, you know, we've had problems with alcohol in my family, you know, I mean, we're not a stranger to it. But, you know, I guess when you're not falling down and you're, you know, functioning, you just assume you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, now how old was your son when he started to get sick?
He was 13 when the seizures started. So it took us a good, you know, the first year there was probably anywhere from, I don't remember, it was 7 or 10 seizures, hospitals. And by the time, you know, they finally diagnosed him with full epilepsy, no more sports, no more bike rides. You know, can you imagine a kid can't ride a bike at 13? You can't play basketball, can't play football. And then to get the medication right was one thing. And then, you know, at the hospital, they would say, well, you know, and then it took us till about, I'd say 14 and a half, where the meds were getting like, okay. And then they'd say, well, no, you can have a glass or two of wine or beer.
Okay.
Like, who says that?
Hang on a sec now. He's 14 at this time?
Well, you know, and they talk to the kids because in Quebec, I don't know how it is over there, but after 14, the parents don't have to be in the room, right? They're considered adult. My son I was lucky. He would always let me stay in the room and he had nothing to hide. And they said, you know, if you do, because you know how kids go to, you know, the park and drink beer in the park.
Yeah.
So they'd say, okay, you can have, you know, 2 beers or whatever. And I said, I don't know a young kid, you know, or a young adult or a young teenager that's going to have 2 beers and stop.
I got blasted when I was 13. I got blackout drunk off 2 tall boys. So like, thanks, Doc.
No. And I guess trying to give him a sense of, you know, with his medication, it wasn't the end of the world, but it was the end of the world. And alcohol and pills don't mix. And quite honestly, I mean, most adults, when they take antibiotics, still drink, right? Like, I mean, that's the craziness about it.
It's just become so ingrained in our society. It's weirder if you don't, you know? So I remember a time when I would go ahead.
And that was a huge red flag. I think that's when, you know, all the booze was like, you know, alcohol was like, really like, all of a sudden I started to look at it like a poison as opposed to the fun stuff, you know, because I couldn't understand how they would even tell a kid that he could have booze with pills. Like, it just didn't make sense.
So was he doing any experimenting with alcohol at that time?
Oh, listen, at 14, you know, and even at that point, you know, he was finally on medication. I guess it was 14, 15. They were, you know, once in a while they'd drink beers in the park and we'd end up back in the hospital because his pills wouldn't work. I mean, we did go through that part of the journey when, you know, this first started. It was like, okay, I'm going to have the 1 or 2, and 1 or 2 never ended up being 1 or 2, right?
Yeah.
And then something would go wrong. And, you know, with time, that's when we realized alcohol was just not an option. There was just no way. So I think that was about when he was, you know, it'll be 10 years. So it's right around when he was 15, when I said, just before he was 15, I said, we're going to do the 3-month. I'm going to do it for 3 months. I'm going to, you know, show you that I don't need to drink. We can have fun and I can have fun. And, you know, I'll prove it to you. And sure enough, you know, 3 months later, he said, see, now you can be like everybody else and go back to being the fun, you know, the fun person, or, you know, the party girl. And then I said, okay, I'll try another 3 months. And now it's going to be 10 years.
Wow. You know, hang on a second here. We got a comment coming in from Teresa Marie Stewart saying, sober 6 days now, me and my man. Right on, Teresa. Thank you so much for sharing. So when this was all transpiring, when you like, did you have like a thought like, oh, maybe I'm going to need to quit drinking to show, to maybe show him the proper way? Like, how long was it from the time you had that spark light in your mind till the time you actually pulled the pin and said, look, I'm going to stop?
I did it the very next day. The
It was
very
just like
next
that.
day, I told him at 9 o'clock at night. I finished probably that huge glass of wine that was old, and maybe a few more actually.
Yeah.
And the next day, that was it. That was
Yeah.
it. I went and I said no more. And I think because he was so sick, and we never knew when the seizures would come and go. It was like I had to try and fix him, and that was the only thing I could do to help him.
So, was it hard? Like when you first quit, was it like a conscious, like, I can't drink today, or was it just like a light switch flipped?
No, it was hard. Like I didn't go to restaurants. There was a lot of the restaurants in the neighborhood, like the sushi place was rosé,
I love
the
sushi.
Italian place was red wine, another place was the vodka martinis. So the first year, I have to say, I stayed very, very quiet. I had been hypnotized for smoking years earlier, so I did go and have that done because I was quite edgy, to say the least. Irritable, probably. And until I think I started like jogging and running to get that release out, it was very hard, very, very hard.
So this was a life-altering event for you. This wasn't just like, I'm going to hang up my glass. This was like, you changed everything.
He gave me back my life. Really, his sickness gave me back my life. I don't think I ever intended to not drink ever again. But as time passed, the more I realized how much better my life was without alcohol. And now I won't drink today, tomorrow, or ever, because I just can't lose what I've found. I just can't. I can't take that, everybody said along the last few years, oh, you know what, you've made your point, knock it off kind of thing.
Have a shot.
Have a glass or whatever. And you know what? I'm just too afraid that I'm going to go back down that path. And there's just nothing worth it. And, for my kids, they see also that you don't need booze to have fun, and the kids, like when we were young, we used to drink and drive. I mean, at least I did, which is bad. Yeah. And my kids don't, they take Ubers or they carpool or they take the train or they find a way. Like there's always a designated driver or 80-90% of the time. So it has changed from when we were young. So I figured, you know what, it was just even if it was hard, it was always better not drinking than drinking.
Wow. So did your son notice a difference, or did your family notice a difference right away? Like there must have been, so you said this was like a life-altering event. There must have been some really hard times. Do you think that your family ever gave you grace because, they knew, okay, you quit drinking, or was it just like full accountability right from the start?
Well, I think, there was so much going on with him being sick and on and off being in hospitals and neuropsychiatrists, because it was all to do with the brain and how it functioned, and depression of, a young kid can't play sports or can't ride a bike. So we were so busy, trying to navigate that, I guess, that everybody was happy. Yeah. But I don't think it was like they thought I was really going to go through with it. Does that make sense? Like,
oh yeah.
It was kind of like, okay, she's doing it just for now. And then the more time passed, then they were like, wow, and Matthew would use me as an excuse when his friends would come over with the, the beer in the backpack or the little bottles of gin or vodka. And he'd say, you can't drink here because my mom stopped drinking for me. Like, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm sick, I have a medical condition, I have to take medication, I can't drink. He used me as the excuse because that's how hard it was for him to be able to talk about not drinking. How bad is that?
Yeah. So did your circle of friends change quite a bit?
There was a few, but most of my friends stayed loyal and true. And they, they have wine, but um, I have to say a lot more got into this wellness. They do sober October, they do dry January, dry July. And they honest, I have to say, over the last 10 years, a lot of them um, drink a lot less because there's Perrier, because there's alternatives. And, they always make an effort for me, to have, sparkling water or water
Hmm.
with fruits in it or whatever.
That
And
sounds
you know
amazing.
what? It is. It is.
Yeah.
They really, they've made a huge effort. There's sometimes that I have been left out, in
Hmm.
weddings or stuff, at, yeah, sitting at the table while they go have shots at the bar.
Hmm.
Because people don't know how to navigate how to deal with somebody that's sober,
Well, and nor
right?
they, and it shouldn't, in my opinion, this is only my personal opinion, but it's like my alcoholism, my addiction, that's mine. Nobody should have to
Yeah.
navigate any kind of way around me.
Yeah.
This is how I
Yeah.
live my life. And I'm happy that y'all
Yeah.
are having fun living yours.
Yeah.
And no, I don't want your scotch.
No. And,
Yeah.
and, and, I have to say that I really think that the more time is going, we are making a difference, and people are seeing that, it's okay. You don't really need the booze to have fun because, quite honestly,
Hmm.
you forget half of the night anyway. So, how much fun did you have?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, really? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not being judgmental. I mean, that's how I see what I did for many, many years. There
Hmm.
were those splotchy parts where, what
Yeah.
exactly happened or who said what, right? So
Yeah.
that's no
Yeah.
fun.
If I'm going to be an idiot, I want to remember that. So, did you ever seek any like peer support or counseling or anything like that?
Well, when I first started, actually, I found something online called Hello Sunday Morning.
Hmm.
And it was every Sunday morning. It was out of, I believe, Colorado. I can't remember right now. My mind just went blank. But anyway, so every Sunday you would journal, your week. And I have to say, it was amazing. It was out of Australia, sorry.
Hmm.
And it was absolutely amazing that, during the week, whenever I had these thoughts, I'd kind of jot some down or make a mental note of them. And then the Sunday, we would like exchange all these notes. And I was like, I don't even remember what my hashtag was, but there was no pictures, and as time went on, everybody did share who they were and whatever. And we became like this little sober community. And there was nothing that people, like if somebody relapsed or somebody drove drunk or did something really bad, they would talk about it and nobody was there to judge them. It was just everybody was really there to support them. And I think that those Sundays was my 2 hours where I would take that time just for me. And when you write things down, I think it's really when you see it in black and white,
Hmm.
it's quite something sometimes, and your feelings that you share are, I wasn't good at sharing my feelings, and I think that's why I did drink when I
Yeah.
drank, because that was easier to share my feelings. I didn't like confrontation. I didn't know how to deal with those kinds of things, or I didn't like it. And
Hmm.
this taught me a lot. So I did that for about 18 months every
So was it?
Sunday.
So is this just like you like a post, almost like a Facebook post, or was it like a virtual meeting where you guys would all like talk and visit?
No, no, no. It was just a post. It was a post, and you just logged in. And like, let's say there would be like 10 of us, and you just start sharing your notes with other people and saying how the week went, and if
Hmm.
there was something that went okay or didn't go okay. And it was, people would read it and then comment, kind of like Facebook or
Hmm.
Instagram, but on a much more private level.
Yeah.
It was
So
definitely private.
did you ever twist out all week about something? Like you get a thought in your head, whatever it might be, and you're twisting and twisting about it, and then you write it down, and you see it there on the screen where everyone else is reading it, and you're like, man, that sounds dumb. I can't believe I was even worried about that.
And more times than not, more
Yeah,
times than not,
we're good at twisting out, aren't we?
Yeah, and making this story so much bigger than what it actually was.
Yeah. Yeah. I I'm working on some sea-doos right now, and something went wrong last night, and holy cow, in my mind those sea-doos exploded, and I was gonna lose all my money that I put into them, and I was just like, oh, the world's coming to a crashing end. And by the end of the night I had them both running amazingly, and today we went onto the river and it was good. So just a shining little example of how bad it can get in a person's head.
And I think too, when you stop drinking, all of a sudden you the clarity that comes with the no liquor, the no
It
booze.
almost sucks.
Yeah, it's like somebody
Sometimes.
slapping
Yeah,
constantly, like all these little like things, and then there were moments where you just kind of go, oh God, why am I doing this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but then I for my son, I loved my son more than I loved myself at that
Mm-hmm.
time, quite honestly.
And then something that stood out to me when we first were conversing last week or whatever, you hear so often people say you can only do this for you. You can only quit and stay sober for you. And then I have this conversation with you and you're like, nah, I did it for my son at first.
Yes.
So yeah, so the first 3 weeks, or sorry, the first 3 months you said was completely to help guide your son. What happened after that?
Yeah. And then in the next 3 months, I have to say, I really did believe I was proving a point to him that 3 months, 6 months, it wasn't really going to change that much in my life.
So you
And
were still proving it to him?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But I think somehow deep down inside, I knew I was feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
I was, everything was changing somehow for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wasn't, I mean, with the booze, I was a big crier. I used to cry often. I was very sensitive. And, that was like kind of like a defense mechanism. I think that when I was sensitive, I would drink to like, kind of like, feel like a little more secure and straight, or was just, solid. And then booze would make me feel like more cryy, like I'd cry and become very emotional. And that was something I had to learn, is how to communicate, how to deal with my feelings, how to talk to people, how to confront things that I didn't want to confront. And that was hard. That was hard without booze. That was hard.
Did you ever consider like AA or anything like that?
No, never. You know what? I guess it was just like 1 minute at a time, one day at a time, really, in my mind. It wasn't, you know, it's like such a blur almost to me, because I think maybe because our life was so upside down also at that time, that what it looked like, or what our life was to what it had become was scary. And it was really scary to have Matthew, not knowing if he was going to have a seizure or not. And the meds didn't always work, even at, we're only now going to be 5 years seizure free in January. So we were a few years seizure free, and then they started again. Now we've got, I think we've got all the right meds and everything else. And he won't even touch, a half a glass of wine at a wedding, or have a beer, or a zero. He doesn't even do the non-alcoholic things. It's just, it's not his thing, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just, he knows it's not for him, and that's it. And he's accepted it.
Yeah. I get the same thing, like I'll tell people, like the one thing I miss the most about drinking is Caesars. I loved Caesars, and people will be like, well, why don't you just have a virgin Caesar? And I'm like, it won't be the same. And I don't want to flip that switch,
No.
So
yeah, it's hard. I think I've had the non-alcoholic wines, and I have them very, very rarely. More so when I have friends that are newly sober. And it's funny because 9 times out of 10, whichever party or whichever function I'm at, and if somebody hears me say I don't drink, and I'm very open and honest about it, somebody comes to sit beside me and says, how did you do that? I'm 1 year sober or 6 months sober. And, it just, the more you talk about it, the easier it is and there's always someone around you that understands or needs you to talk about it. So
it's a great conversation piece.
Yeah.
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 So when you were, let me think here now. There was a point where your son got well, like you had just mentioned. You're now 5 years seizure free. And there was some challenges around that too, wasn't there? Like when he was well, all of your focus had gone into him, but now he's doing his own thing and making his own decisions. Tell us a little bit about that transition.
And, you know, we did no vacations for so many years together, my husband and I. And finally, we decided to rent a cottage just an hour and a half away from where we live in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And so my son, Matthew, and my older son would just come on the weekends. And not being like, I guess I'm a control freak, or I was. I'm learning how to not be, or a helicopter parent. That was very hard. And you know, when you drink, you know, it takes up a lot of time. And when you don't drink, you have a lot more time on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so being away in a party where we were, there was a lot of people there, a lot of cocktail parties, a lot of barbecues and whatever. And it was, you know, very hard, because when I would see people with like women with rosé, I would be like, oh my God, just the smell of it was like I could just almost grab it out of their hand. And that whole summer, I have to say, like I would kind of have to go and leave a lot of places quite quickly. Just, I mean, I don't think I would have ever done it, but it just felt like no one was around. I guess it was all that I could do it if I wanted. People were saying, you don't have a problem. Stop with this. I don't know why you keep saying you had a problem. And, you know, I guess they didn't quite understand, you know, how much better I am now today. At almost 10 years, people say, oh my God, we get it now. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they see the difference. They see that I'm so much happier. They see I've found my passion. So there's not even a question. There's like saying, how come there's no mocktails for her? You know, like they're trying to do the reverse of you know, the beginning, because it's hard to understand, I guess, at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So how did you, okay, so your son is well now.
Yes.
And you're going through this transition, having a lot more free time. What did you fill that space with?
Well, I started with running, jogging, walking, a lot of walking. And then I got into meditation. And I wasn't really good at it at first, because to sit quietly and still for me is quite hard.
I still can't do that.
But I'm getting much better. And I have to say that, you know, when I do it, it does help me, because I need something to quiet my mind. You know, I kind of get into these like little, like I'm almost like a little hurricane, you know, like the Tasmanian devil.
Oh, I know.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, like when I had this space open up in my life, I needed to fill that void with something else that was fulfilling. So, when did Sober is the New Cool come around?
Well, it was right around, you know, like 50, I guess when he was about 15, before that, we started talking about it. My sister made the logo, and we trademarked the name, just figuring why not. And I really wanted it because I was having so many problems with people always saying, oh, you can have one, nobody will know. And I figured for him, if it's that hard for me at 50, imagine him at 15. It's going to be a disaster. How is he ever going to be able to manage that? You know, that's hard. It was hard for me. So, and we went on Facebook. Facebook was the first thing. And quite honestly, the comments and people just started reaching out from all over the world. It was like, all of a sudden, it was like incredible. It was mostly, I would say, from 20 to 45. That was the, you know, the age that I had. And I had a lot of women, not as many men at the beginning. I had sober dads, like, you know, men that were quitting to save their families or whatever. But basically, it was just unbelievable. And I couldn't believe people were ready to share their story with me. And so then at that point, I realized I needed to find other people and resources to be able to help these people find whatever they needed to find. And it just, I started one thing, which I was doing with my kids at the time, which I had gone to the dollar store and bought these billboards, and I wrote, I am, and put it in front of their sink. And every morning there would be a positive word, and every night there would be a positive word. So when people started reaching out to me, I started saying to them, okay, do you want to do this exercise? It's called I am. I would explain it to them. And then I'd tell them when I sent them the word to place their hand on their heart and close their eyes. And, I would start at the beginning with words that they could relate to, because most people that are in addiction or have mental health issues don't have a lot of self-confidence, don't remember any of the qualities that they have. So I would start with words like sporty or funny or smart, like words that were like easy for them to kind of say, oh, well, maybe, and then I would ask, exactly. And then finally, I had this one school teacher, and she was about 30, and she was teaching grade 5 students. And so I started with her, and she said, no, there's nothing good about me. I said, okay, wait a minute. Of course there's something good. So 6 months after we had started, she wrote me back on Instagram, but like on a, open. And she said, when I first met Kim, I couldn't say one good thing about myself. And now I could say 50. And every morning when the kids come into the class, I put I am on the board, and I go around the room and make them all say something good about themselves every single day, for them to learn, to remember their qualities, and for people to say, they could say funny and smart. And they had to find, she said, and as you go on, it's harder to find words, right? Because and it gets deeper. And lately I met this wonderful, wonderful girl called Kelly Marie, and she's a nurse, and she had, had some really, really hard times and was in a coma actually about 2.5, 3 years ago. Now is back doing well, got a great job, got a great promotion. And when I started with her, and she said, I'm hardworking. I said, no, can't be 2 words, got to be 1 word. And I said, okay. She said, no, I can't think of one. I said, well, I would say dedicated. And she was like, wow, because it means the same thing. But when you say dedicated and you say hardworking, it's two. And she lit up, like we were talking actually on WhatsApp when we were doing it. And her face just lit up. And I mean, imagine a nurse during COVID and all the stress, and with an addiction, a previous addiction problem. That's really being dedicated. And, she's just like flourishing. And to this day, we still, once in a while, when she goes a little, she does her AA because that's her thing. And she still loves me sending her the I am messages here and there when she feels a bit low. And then she goes, yeah, I am lovable, or I am smart, or I am unique, or, I am quirky. There's all kinds of words and then makes you smile, and then you go on with your day, right?
So, okay, what is sober is the new cool? Like, what do you call that?
Well, first of all, we have T-shirts and hoodies, but the only reason why we did that is to give people like a sense of honor or pride that they could wear sober is the new cool. All the proceeds, once the T-shirts are paid for, go back to mental health and addiction. That's number one. Sober is the new cool was made so that we could end the stigma between alcohol and addiction, because I'm just not one of these. I just don't believe in, if you make a mistake that you go back to everything that you've done just disappears. Things happen in life, and I want to end that stigma of day one again. You're back. Good. Thank God you're back. And just keep coming back until we get it right. And I think the biggest thing for me was, it took me till I was 60 years old to say I'm enough and really mean it. And I don't want anybody to have to wait till they're 60 to do that. So I'm just here to help people and connect people. And that's what I've basically done especially the last 5 years. I've connected a mother in South Africa with another guy, Chris Nell, that's a podcaster like you. And he knew people in South Africa to help her son. And he's his third time into rehab, but he's finally clean. And that's what I do. I just put people together, and I just, encourage people, and people will send me messages. I feel like drinking today, and I'll say, okay, let's do this, or what can I do to help you get through this moment? And, sometimes there's people going to social events in London, for example. There was one girl going to Sober Dave's event. And then all of a sudden, 2 days before, she said, oh, I'm going by myself. I don't know anybody. And I said, wait a second. And so I just wrote at this name. And all these women reached out to her, and one lived one train stop away from her. So they all took the train together.
Nice.
We are a fantastic community. And so that's what Sober is the New Cool is. It's just putting people together and helping each other and lifting each other up.
Social media is such a fantastic connector. Since I've been doing Hard Knox Talks, there's been at least 2 people that have told me, who's to say people that haven't mentioned it, that have been connected with estranged family members that had cut ties because of the actions or the things that happened in active addiction. But when they heard their story and saw that there had been decisions made, they reconnected. Oh, we've got a comment from our dear friend Sharon. Sharon says, 60, goddamn, you look fabulous. You even got 3 hearts.
Well, I look a lot better now than I did at 45. That's all I can tell you. There's a huge difference.
So, now you mentioned there, in the last 5 years, you really, really focused on Sober is the New Cool. And you had just mentioned that your son has been seizure free for 5 years. So I guess maybe, I'm going to do a little research and investigating here and say that, when your time opened up from caring for your son, you replaced that fulfilling thing with Sober is the New Cool, which is clearly a very fulfilling thing. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes. But I think, I had so many people at that point. Like at the beginning, it was like kind of like very easy breezy, and I could do now I actually get up quite early, and my phone is with me nonstop. Someone's going to a funeral and is afraid they're going to drink, I'll talk them through it until they get there. It just seems to be that this is where 5 years ago, and I guess the timing, it's funny that you mention it. And then I think with COVID, once COVID, the last 3 years, that was like a no-brainer, that for sure that was somebody would need help. But I guess, I did have a bit of extra time, but quite honestly, it was just every time I turned around, or I would stop and I'd think, oh my God, somebody would come into my mind, and then I'd just send them a little note. And sure enough, for some reason, they needed me at that moment. And I really believe that there was like always an angel somehow guiding me doing what I was doing. And just got busier and busier and busier.
How's your relationship with your son today?
Much better. When we first started this journey, I have to say, that it was, he didn't want to go to the psychologist. He didn't want to go to the neuropsychiatrist at the beginning. We were battling, it was really, really hard. The meds were really hard. And, I was constantly on top of him, like control, way too much control. And, but I did learn without the booze. And I remember that distinctively now, after that night when I went downstairs. Now when I have to talk to him, I won't talk to him at the dinner table with my husband and my other son. I will go downstairs to where he plays his video games or whatever and talk to him one-on-one. I really make a constant effort to really be careful, not just with him, but, more so with him, because he needed more help, and now, things are turning around, but I'm still on his ass a lot of the time. She probably
Wow.
would tell you he's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, my mom's on me all the time too. There's always something. Like, it doesn't matter how good and how fulfilled I am in my life. My mom's always got. There's always something. There's always something.
Yeah.
I think that's just a mom thing, really. So.
And I still do. Like this weekend, he had a wedding,
Mhm.
and I said to him again before he left, Matthew, you sure you're not going to drink? You sure you're not going to drink? And he said,
Yeah.
Mom, I don't drink. I don't
Yeah.
drink. But and I guess he could say the same thing to me when I go to a party, right?
Mm-hmm. Does he ever?
Sure you're not going to drink? No, he's never said it to me. But one time at Christmas time, I was doing decorations and everything was going not the way I wanted. And my house is like a Christmas store. And I said, you know what? I could just have a martini right now. And they both turned around. If I could tell you, I'll never forget their faces when they said, no, don't do that. And then I realized, you know what? There obviously was a bigger issue than I wanted to admit to, because the way they both said no. And my husband still drinks. Like, there's booze in our house. It's not, if someone comes over, they can have wine or whatever. It's not
You just genuinely don't want to do it, eh?
But I won't wash a glass of wine. I won't wash a dirty glass. That there's no way. I won't go into a wine store and buy wine.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Healthy
Those
boundaries.
Are things that just, yep.
Yeah. Awesome, Kim. Well, I think we're coming to the end here. Is there any final thoughts you have? Anything you didn't say that you want to?
I just want everyone to know that, you know what, they're really important. And you know what, there's so many of us out there that really, really, really are there to just inspire them and empower them. And we would, just be as nice to yourselves as you would be to us. Like if we made a mistake, somebody would never be mean to us. They would never judge us. They would support us. And I just hope that people do that with themselves. And remember, how many good qualities they do have, and, how much they are, important, and they matter, and they are enough. Honestly, they are enough, just the way they are.
Where can people find you? Where can people find your merchandise?
On Instagram at sober.is.the.new.cool. Our website, soberisthenewcool.ca. We're on Facebook. We have a shop there also. We have a LinkedIn page. We have a YouTube channel. We're just about everywhere. So, and we will get back to you.
Awesome. Okay, Kim, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for bringing some experience, strength, and hope to the community. And we will let you go. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for us. Please follow, subscribe, do all the things. Tell all your